Mo, kicking it off with an AFC team that is in the hunt for the number one overall seed, just like your Kansas City Chiefs, even though they fell officially a game back after that Packers loss. But Baltimore sitting as a touchdown favorite against the Rams on early Sunday afternoon. This has dipped since the opener initially was released at 7.5, but it quickly bumped down to a flat touchdown. Total of around 43. How are you betting this game?
Yeah, some tug of war back and forth on this line. Seems like there's sharps that like 7.5, and there's sharps that are maybe willing to take the -7 because it's kind of bouncing around. But yeah, I still like the Rams. I unfortunately did take 7, but it was a cheap 7. Like I think it was like -105, so I feel fine about it. The total in this game, it has seen a ton of movement though, dropping like a stone. I think it's down like 3 points, down close to 40 now. I think that's mostly due to the weather. It looks like heavy rain is what's coming with some potentially high winds, at least medium winds, and could be some bigger gusts and stuff like that. But yeah, it looks like quite a bit of rain. I think like 90% chance of rain or something. Could be a downpour here. Obviously, once the total starts to compress like this, it's probably a good thing for the underdog, even if stylistically speaking, it might help the Ravens a little more since they have been a more effective rushing team at times. Although, the Rams, since getting Kyren Williams back, their offense seems to be clicking in basically all phases, and that includes the run. I mean, they obviously have faced some vulnerable defenses, but not the Browns, and they're still moving the rock at will on the Browns. A lot probably depends on the health of their pass catchers here. I think everyone's pretty banged up out of their top 3, I guess I would say, which is like Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and maybe Tyler Higbee. I don't know. That third person has kind of been, Tutu Atwell at times, but all those guys are maybe less than 100%, which worries me a little bit. But like I talked about when we initially discussed this game, you have a defense that kind of actually struggles to create pressure, down in the 20s in pressure rate, I think, with the Ravens. So that's my biggest thing I'm looking for when I'm looking at the team that's facing the Rams. How effective can they be rushing the passer? Matt Stafford is pretty bad now if he has to do anything on the move. And overall, I would say this is a spot where I'm honestly most fearful of just like the general spot for the Rams, because it is a long travel across the country and they are facing the Ravens off the bye. If this were to dip below 7, I would lose some interest in it. But I still think it's good at 7.5, obviously. Kind of depends on what you want to do, which number you want to take. Like, if you can get a cheap 7, it might honestly be fine, like better in some ways than paying some extra juice for the hook in a game where shouldn't be a lot of scoring, and there could be some Ravens walkovers if their pass rush is winning and getting to Matt Stafford. So I probably wouldn't want to pay juice if I can help it. So just maybe hope the 7 is good enough. And yeah, I do like the Rams though. It's just too high of a line for me, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned the total going down to around 40. I mentioned that opener, or slight opener, I guess, was initially 43.5, then maybe 43 Sunday night, early Monday morning, and then took a major slide, as you mentioned. But kind of some things going in your favor. You mentioned the Rams' efficient ground game with Williams back ever since the Cardinals game a couple weeks ago, I think. But Rams actually ranked 5th in EPA per play since getting Stafford back from that thumb injury over the last 3 weeks. Now, obviously, weather conditions have been on their side, and bad weather may not favor, or probably doesn't favor, Stafford, especially going up against arguably the best defense in the NFL. But like you said, they were able to run on a pretty good Browns run defense, even though the home road splits for Cleveland are pretty stark. Now, on the flip side, you mentioned Baltimore coming off the bye. Come Sunday, they will have played one game in their last 24 days. And then we brought this up on the Monday episode of Beat the Closing Number. Rams going cross country. So clear rest advantage for the Ravens, on top of the fact that they have the bye, which plays into just playing one game. the Chargers game over their last 24 days once Sunday rolls around. Now, the Mark Andrews injury, I am kind of curious how that impacts this Ravens offense in the long term. It may have just been a one-game blimp, but Lamar Jackson had his third sub 60% completion percentage against LA a couple weeks ago, and that was coming off of Andrews undergoing the ankle surgery, and he could potentially be out for the rest of the regular season. We'll see if he winds up coming back if the Ravens make a deeper run of the playoffs. But a couple of glaring concerns for Baltimore, potential concerns, if that inefficiency remains an issue for Jackson, and then if this Rams offense can keep this up in poor conditions. I would probably trend on the opposite side of that we will see some offensive aggression, especially against this defense at home with all the rest they've gotten. But still, a couple things on your side there.
Yeah, I think the Mark Andrews injury obviously is going to be pretty big. I mean, you got a passing game that's pretty light in general on weapons, I think. And even though I do like what I've seen from Zay Flowers, but especially in the red zone, that's where Mark Andrews definitely does his best work. And I think definitely in a game where, not a lot of points are going to be expected, getting that 7 instead of that 3 is massive. So, hoping, that maybe the Rams can hold to some field goals, put together a couple decent drives, and just squeak out a grindy cover where, would it even surprise me if the Rams won? Not really. I mean, they're really do seem to be clicking and playing their best football. I really like the way Sean McVay's been calling these games. And then you have a Ravens team that I think hasn't played quite as well as its record for a lot of the season, faced a lot of backup quarterbacks, stuff like that. So happy to have the Rams in this spot. But at the same time, would I be stunned if the final score was like 24-10 here? Not really.
I'm going to be rooting for Baltimore. I have those Ravens futures. Countering your last point, I will say the DVOA stuff numbers are adjusted for the opponent. So Baltimore still top of the rankings in that metric at least, but not that DVOA is the end all be all.
And also on that point, you got to remember, like, if you face backup quarterbacks, they're crediting you for facing the full team. So they do make adjustments for that in their forward-looking projections, but not in their ladder-looking scoring stuff. Like they're going to get full credit for beating the Browns 28-3 or whatever that game was, when that was DTR, who was just completely beyond clueless at that point.
Mo will forever hate the Ravens, and probably me every year I bet them, which will probably happen next year if they don't do anything in the playoffs.